What are your thoughts on the new nominated Secretary of Defense?
So he was in my Bible study at Princeton. In fact, I was his Bible study leader. So I know him fairly well from those days. He and I have kept touch because he and I have been both involved in veterans advocacy since we left the service. So a couple things about Pete. One, he left Princeton and was a Bear Stearns bond trader. And then I believe as the wake of 9/11, he decided that he would actually join the Army. I think it was the National Guard, and did 3 deployments. So he's someone who did not have to serve, had a sort of well-paying classic Ivy League job, and decided to do it anyway. So I think he gets a lot of credit there. 2, he's a frontline combat leader. And one thing to remember is that I will say virtually all of the current colonel and general class or admiral class has not seen frontline combat in a sustained way. I'm 45. I am about the oldest of the frontline combat leaders that have been produced by Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, so Iraq and Afghanistan. They are older than me. That means they were all majors and they were all lieutenant colonels when this war kicked off, which means that they have been staff officers, which means they have not carried the rifle. They have not led through several hundred firefights at the pointy end of the spear. And I think that there is something to be said for having a Secretary of Defense who has done all of that and can hold them accountable. I think third, Pete doesn't need the money from Lockheed Martin or from Boeing or Raytheon in order to fund his retirement to sit on their boards. And so there's a lot to be said for someone coming in who doesn't have ties to the defense industry, because there is for sure a military industrial complex. And you need some of that to build out your manufacturing base and produce things that no one else can do. But some of that's bad, like when you pay $4,000 for a toilet seat, which is a real thing. Some of that's bad when the DOD failed its 7th audit in a row. If this were a public company, we would have delisted them. But because it's a Department of Defense, we let it go. So having someone come in who is not beholden to the classic defense contractor industry to pay them in retirement. I saw plenty of guys leave, even as colonels or lieutenant colonels. And the next thing they wanted to do was get on board with the contractor and then walk right back into their old job in civilian clothes and with the TS badge and be paid 30% more. That was very, very common. So someone who's not part of that industry can be very, very, I think, helpful and useful. Challenges or the negatives to his confirmation or his appointment are obvious, right? One, he has no experience leading a large bureaucratic organization. Because he's not an insider, he isn't as familiar with the levers of influence and power within the, let's call it, 5 walls of the Pentagon. That's going to be a challenge. Similarly, he does not have, let's call it, large managerial expertise even outside of the defense sector. It's not as if he is coming in as CEO of Ford, as an example, right? He's a news commentator. He's largely paid to be an individual contributor. And then I would say, finally, he's had ups and downs in his, personal life since he came back from combat. I think he's on his 3rd wife. He has a blended family. And so, there's clearly some, I don't know, maybe know how you think about this. There's some, let's call it, areas of distraction in the personal life that exist as well. So, but at the end of the day, I can tell you from my knowledge of him as a human, he's a good man. He does want to love God. I think he's in this for the right reasons. We've texted back and forth a couple of times since his nomination was announced, and he's clearly got the mindset of there's a lot to do. I do like that the administration, by and large, is appointing a mix of outsiders and let's call it unconventional insiders in many ways to get a sort of a representative portfolio of diverse views within the cabinet itself. And I think Pete is one of those. Whether he gets confirmed or not is probably an open question, but you could do a lot worse. Let me put it that way.
That was an excellent analysis. Was not expecting that.
Thanks. Well, and
thank you.
Pete, clear, he's got my full-throated support. I mean, I know the man. I know his character. I know he's in this for the right reasons. I know that he's not looking to parlay his time as defense secretary into a $10 million per year sinecure on the back end of this. And you can't say that about a lot of other people. He wants to do a good job for the right reasons. He's doing this with a combat leader mindset. I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've heard, which is not that much, I'm in full support of him as well. I mean, he recognizes the dangers of the military industrial complex. He recognizes the dangers of having women in combat positions.
Well, because he understands the importance of lethality, because he fought on the front lines. Unlike, again, a lot of generals who've never done that. They've never been their life on the line again and again and again and again. He He knows what it means to have uncompromising standards, have excellence at the point of the spear, and not to use the military as a laboratory for progressive social experiments at the expense of lethality. Should the military be a place that is absolutely racially integrated? Of course, you've got to have the best. I don't give a damn what their skin color looks like. They need to be at the tip of the spear. Should the military be an absolute meritocracy? Absolutely. If you want to be in the Delta Force, you need to be the best of the best. Should the military have an incredibly diverse base? Absolutely. You want a Farsi speaker? You're not going to get a lot of those guys unless you have a strong Iranian population in the United States of immigrants that wants to serve this country that's been so good to them, right? But at the end of the day, the military has to win wars. Pete understands that. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.